You've seen it yourself. The loudest voice in the room gets promoted, while the most competent person gets overlooked. Maybe you've worked with a manager who dazzled in interviews, but left their team scrambling to fix their mistakes. This is a systemic problem that undermines both morale and results. As someone who spent over 15 years studying organizational leadership, I've seen how often confidence is mistaken for competence. This confusion of qualities is precisely why today we explore the confidence-competence gap. I'll show you how to identify and promote the right people, whether you're advancing yourself or making hiring decisions. If you're new here, please subscribe and like because I share tips to help you improve your career. We all know the type, the smooth-talking executive who commands attention, makes bold declarations, and leaves everyone convinced they're leadership material. But what if that confidence is just a facade? Research from Cornell University found that organizations consistently mistake confidence for competence, a bias that costs companies millions annually. The most qualified candidates often don't stand out in traditional interviews, where polished speakers dominate. Meanwhile, those with real expertise stay quiet, assuming their work should speak for itself. These examples underscore how a superficial evaluation can be misleading. Take the case of a Fortune 500 company that promoted a manager based on his exceptional presentation skills. Within a year, his department saw 40% turnover. Why? Because while he could sell ideas, he couldn't execute them. His confidence masked an inability to lead. This isn't rare. A study published in Harvard Business Review showed that men are 30% more likely to be promoted based on perceived confidence alone, regardless of actual ability. This bias creates a cycle where charisma is rewarded over competence, leaving organizations vulnerable to poor leadership. The contradiction runs even deeper. Truly competent leaders often score poorly on traditional leadership potential assessments. Why? Because these evaluations prioritize charisma and self-assurance over measurable results. It's like a flashy storefront that hides a poorly stocked interior. What looks impressive on the surface doesn't always hold up under scrutiny. A tech startup learned this the hard way when they hired a charismatic CEO who lacked technical expertise. Investors loved his vision, but employees saw the gaps. The company folded within 18 months. Confidence sells, but competence delivers. Poor leadership decisions don't just slow productivity, they erode trust, stifle innovation, and drive talent out the door. Yet organizations keep falling into the same trap. The solution isn't to dismiss confident candidates. It's to distinguish between confidence and actual capability. Look past the presentation. Dig into track records. Ask for specific results, not just persuasive rhetoric. Real leaders create success, often quietly, behind the scenes. But confidence isn't the only trait we misjudge. That magnetic leader who commands every room might actually be your organization's biggest liability. Narcissistic leadership is like a searing flame that dazzles at first, but ultimately burns the foundation. Research from the University of Amsterdam shows narcissistic traits help people rise to power, but these same traits destroy organizations long term. Psychological studies reveal narcissists excel in interviews. They're charismatic, articulate their vision effortlessly, and make powerful first impressions. But this charm often masks deeper flaws. A celebrated retail CEO took his company public to fanfare, boasting record short-term gains. Yet the same excessive risk-taking that made him famous drove the company into bankruptcy. Similarly, a pharmaceutical company hired a dynamic CEO whose bold predictions captivated investors. But reckless decision-making and an obsession with personal legacy led to a disastrous gamble on an unproven drug, plunging the stock 72% in 3 months. Why does this happen? Teams led by narcissists show 60% higher burnout rates and produce less innovative work, according to a Stanford study. Narcissistic leaders create cults of personality that discourage dissent. Employees quickly learn that challenging the leader's ideas has consequences, leading to groupthink and stifled critical thinking. A University of Toronto study found people rate confident, extroverted individuals as 34% more competent than quieter peers, even when evidence suggests otherwise. This bias persists because, in ancestral environments, dominance often signaled capability. Modern organizations still operate on this outdated wiring. The red flags often hide in plain sight. Narcissistic leaders claim credit for team successes while blaming failures on external factors. They surround themselves with yes men, focus on beating competitors rather than serving customers, and prioritize personal brand building over organizational health. Hedge funds led by narcissistic managers produce volatile returns, huge wins followed by catastrophic losses. The same traits that generate short-term headlines destroy long-term value. The solution isn't avoiding charismatic candidates altogether. Instead, seek charisma paired with humility. Effective leaders balance vision with openness to feedback, credit teams for successes, and take responsibility for failures. The most damaging leaders aren't the obviously bad ones. They're the ones who look like stars until it's too late. Rigorous due diligence is the best insurance against this hidden liability. The most effective leaders often aren't the ones giving inspiring speeches or dominating boardroom discussions. While loud voices might steal the spotlight, the quiet listener fuels true innovation. Research analyzing Fortune 500 companies over a decade found that organizations with humble CEOs outperformed their peers by 17% in long-term shareholder returns. These leaders listen more than they speak and credit their teams rather than taking center stage. Consider the case of Bridgewater Manufacturing, a struggling industrial firm that promoted an unassuming engineer with 20 years of experience to CEO. Unlike his predecessor, who focused on media appearances and industry awards, the new leader spent his first 3 months quietly listening to frontline workers. Within 2 years, the company reversed declining profitability by implementing process improvements suggested by junior staff, improvements previous leadership had ignored. Productivity rose 32% under his leadership, even though his name rarely appeared in press releases. This case is just one clear demonstration of the humble leader's power to transform internal processes. A study in the Academy of Management Journal found that teams led by humble managers produced 35% more patent applications and innovative solutions than those led by more egotistical leaders. The key: psychological safety. When leaders admit what they don't know and actively seek input, employees feel empowered to share ideas without fear of embarrassment. Google's Project Aristotle confirmed this, identifying psychological safety as the top factor in high-performing teams. Humble leadership is like a seasoned gardener nurturing growth. These leaders create environments where ideas flourish, yet they often get overlooked. Research from the Leadership Quarterly Journal shows that during recruitment, humble candidates receive 28% lower leadership potential ratings compared to more assertive candidates, even when their actual job performance is superior. Tech giant HCL Technologies demonstrated the power of reversing this bias. Facing bankruptcy in the early 2000s, they replaced their high-profile CEO with Vineet Nayar, an operations expert known for deflecting praise. His employee-first initiative inverted the corporate hierarchy, encouraging staff to grade management performance publicly. Within 5 years, annual revenues grew from $1.5 billion to $4.7 billion, driven by systems that surfaced the best ideas, regardless of origin. Quiet leaders who listen create cultures where people do their best work. They build organizations that outlast individual personalities, delivering results that flashier leaders can't match. If you're finding this helpful, please subscribe and like, because it helps us create content that matters to you. Also, if you want to take your skills further, check out our executive education and executive coaching programs at execbeat.com. When leaders compromise their integrity, the damage ripples far beyond a single bad decision. Research from EY shows companies with high integrity leadership experience 3 times fewer scandals and crises than their peers. Yet many organizations reward leaders who deliver short-term results through questionable means, often leading to catastrophic consequences. The financial toll of ethical lapses is staggering. A PricewaterhouseCoopers analysis found the average ethical breach costs companies $4 million in direct losses, including legal fees and regulatory fines. But the indirect costs can be even more damaging. For instance, when food manufacturer Bellmark Foods replaced its profit-driven CEO with an ethics-focused leader, it took 3 years to regain lost market share despite immediate improvements in product quality. Consumers remembered the earlier safety scandals long after leadership changed. Consider the case of Yorkshire Bank, executives implemented aggressive lending policies to meet quarterly targets, knowingly approving loans to insolvent businesses. While profits briefly soared, the eventual collapse cost 2,400 employees their jobs. This reflects a broader trend. A University of Navarra study found only 12% of employees trust leaders with weak integrity, fostering cultures of disengagement and high turnover. Why is integrity so rare in leadership? Conflicting incentives play a major role. A Harvard Business School study tracking 1,800 executives found those prioritizing ethical principles over short-term gains earned 23% smaller bonuses on average. Promotion systems often favor immediate results, even when achieved by cutting corners. This explains why only 1 in 5 Fortune 500 CEOs score high on integrity assessments, despite its proven benefits. Integrity also shapes how leaders handle gray areas. A MIT Sloan study found leaders who prioritize transparency and honor commitments generate 9% higher customer retention rates because stakeholders trust their long-term intentions. Behavioral economists at Chicago Booth discovered that micro-decisions, like how leaders treat suppliers during crises, better predict success than any interview response. Some companies have turned integrity into a competitive advantage. Costco's refusal to weaken employee benefits resulted in turnover rates 65% below retail averages. Patagonia's decision to sue over national monument reductions tripled its recruitment of top-tier environmental engineers. These examples show that operationalizing integrity attracts talent and builds trust. Sustainable success demands leaders who anchor decisions in principles. Organizations prioritizing ethical leadership consistently outperform others by every long-term metric that matters. Most companies promote leaders using broken systems that favor presentation over substance. A Gartner study found 70% of organizations use assessment methods that consistently misidentify high-potential candidates. Outdated criteria like prioritizing confidence, communication skills, and interview performance over actual leadership results fuel cycles of bad promotions that harm long-term performance. McKinsey documented this issue with a global consulting firm that initially promoted associates based on client feedback scores, favoring charismatic presenters. After switching to a competency-based model focused on real project outcomes, leadership failures dropped by 60%. The fix was simple. Track who delivers results, not just who talks well. Structured interviews offer another solution. Research from the Journal of Applied Psychology shows they predict leadership success twice as effectively as traditional interviews. By using standardized questions that score specific competencies, they eliminate the advantage of smooth talkers. For instance, instead of asking, "Describe your leadership style," they ask, "Tell me about a time your team failed to meet a goal. How did you respond?" This approach reveals real behavior patterns, not rehearsed answers. What if you could redesign promotions and fix leadership pipelines overnight? Here are 5 actionable changes organizations can make. 1. Replace open-ended interviews with structured behavioral questions focused on past actions. 2. Use standardized scorecards that prioritize actual results over subjective impressions. 3. Hold calibration meetings where multiple evaluators review evidence together. 4. Track promotion outcomes over time to identify which criteria predict success. 5. Audit the demographics of promoted candidates to uncover hidden biases. These changes work. A multinational retailer reduced store manager turnover by 35% by prioritizing operational metrics like team retention rates and sales per square foot over personality traits. Similarly, blind promotion processes like those at Unity Technologies focus on anonymized work portfolios, increasing leadership diversity by 40% and improving team performance by 22%. Think of leadership selection like building a sports team. You wouldn't pick players based on how well they describe their skills. You'd look at their stats and game performance. Leadership potential is no different. By measuring actual achievements, problem solving, and team impact, organizations can promote the right people and create cultures where competence drives success. The right leaders transform organizations from the ground up, Research from the Corporate Leadership Council shows companies with competent, humble leaders experience 45% higher employee retention rates. These leaders create environments where people feel valued, challenged, and able to do their best work. Yet, most organizations still rely on outdated promotion methods that favor confidence over competence. Consider Brightside Retail, a 200-store chain that reversed 6 consecutive quarters of declining sales by overhauling its promotion process. Structured interviews and 360-degree reviews helped identify leaders with humility and integrity. Within 18 months, sales grew 8% annually, and employee turnover dropped by half. Similarly, Drexel Corp replaced underperforming plant managers with leaders selected through competency-based assessments. Productivity across all facilities increased 18% within 2 years, and market share grew from 14% to 21%. These examples highlight the multiplier effect of strong leadership. When one team thrives, the benefits ripple across the organization. Why does this happen? Neuroscience offers insights. Brain imaging studies show employees under effective leaders experience increased activity in areas linked to problem-solving and creativity. Lower stress hormone levels also explain why good leadership correlates with better health outcomes and reduced absenteeism. Imagine what your company could achieve if every leader had this impact. The coming talent wars will separate organizations with real leadership from those without. LinkedIn's Workforce Confidence Index reveals 74% of professionals would accept lower pay for better leadership. As millennials and Gen Z dominate the workforce, this preference will only grow. Younger workers prioritize development opportunities and psychological safety over traditional perks, putting poorly led companies at a severe disadvantage. Construction firm Torrington Group learned this the hard way. After losing 40% of their project managers, they discovered employees left due to a lack of developmental support. Leadership training focused on coaching and feedback skills reduced voluntary turnover to 12% within 3 years, while the firm doubled its project portfolio and won workplace culture awards. The financial implications are clear. Companies ranked in the top quartile for leadership quality deliver 2.3 times higher shareholder returns over 10 years. Leadership isn't just important, it's existential. Organizations that fail to prioritize it risk losing their best people, their competitive edge, and their future. Every organization faces a choice: maintain broken promotion systems that elevate the wrong people, or redesign processes to identify true leaders, those with competence, humility, and integrity. Data proves companies with evidence-based leadership pipelines achieve 45% higher retention and 2.3x better financial returns. This week, audit a recent promotion decision using the frameworks we've covered. Compare the candidate's achievements to their presentation skills. Great leadership is like a well-tuned engine, driving the entire organization forward. As Brightside Retail and Drexel Corp showed, fixing leadership selection creates ripple effects. The best leaders measure success by how they unlock others' potential. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like because it helps us bring you more free videos. And if you're ready to grow your career, visit execbeat.com to learn about our executive education and coaching.